Hey guys, welcome to day one of Shatter Your Echo Chamber. So what the heck is an echo chamber anyway? So I was watching a video recently by Simon Sinek, and Simon is one of my favorite teachers. Simon made the point that we are all in an echo chamber. And it really stood out to me. It gave me some pause for thought because I've noticed that all of the growth that I've had in the past, say, 20 years of my life happened when I left the surroundings I was in, the comfort zone I was in, the familiar people, the familiar beliefs, and explored something new. And I found that quite significant. I've been pondering this recently, and I quite like the idea of describing it as an echo chamber. To me, an echo chamber is a place where you've surrounded yourself with people and experiences that keep perpetuating the same thoughts and beliefs. Inside an echo chamber, there are certain things that are considered accepted. There are certain ideas of right and wrong, good and bad, even good and evil, in the case of a religious echo chamber. And these thoughts are perpetuated almost indefinitely. Anybody that comes into the echo chamber that agrees with those thoughts is embraced and considered to be part of the community very quickly. But that same echo chamber also will reject new ideas that are different. And that's very significant because what that means is that while you're in an echo chamber, your options, the accepted solutions for various problems, the right path to take to success, even the idea of what success is, are all very specifically defined. And you don't get to explore other paths while you're in that environment. So if you think about people that completely ignored the echo chambers of the day and pushed themselves into entirely new territories. There's some amazing people out there. You've got people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of my favorites, only because he's really broken a lot of echo chambers, right? The idea that as a foreigner he could succeed in America, the idea that as a nobody he could succeed in a professional sport of bodybuilding and reach new heights, the idea that somebody completely outside of Hollywood who could barely speak English, he could become an actor. The idea that as a foreign national, he could become a governor of a major state, on and on again. He kept leaving and ignoring those limiting beliefs from the community echo chamber and simply ignored them and created his own path. Other great examples would be Tesla. All right, Tesla completely ignored the scientists of the day and created his own rules regarding electricity, explored it his own way. Same thing for Elon Musk, right? So Elon Musk, the echo chamber says, well, we can't really do space travel yet. No one's really got the technology. So what? He's gone and created it. Steve Jobs did the same for mobile devices. If it weren't for Steve, we'd still be walking around with brick phones, right? So you look at the expectations and the beliefs of a society and the individuals that escape that bubble and what they become capable of doing. Now, in my own life, I've seen this in much smaller ways, obviously, but ways that are very significant to me. So if I look at my experiences, I was in the U.S. for most of my life, and at some point I realized I didn't like the message. I didn't like the feeling of the ideal that the only way to happiness was wealth plus family plus success. If you don't have any of those three, you're a failure. Okay? And I didn't know what other alternatives I had. I didn't know any other echo chamber. I'd never heard of any other stories even of people that had found happiness without following the American dream way of pursuing happiness. But at some point, it frustrated me enough that I decided to go exploring. And I ended up in an entirely new echo chamber, which was Moscow, Russia. Now, this was interesting. It was kind of by chance. It wasn't really intentional. But the difference between the capitalist echo chamber and the communist echo chamber really allowed me to see a very different worldview on what it takes to create both individual happiness and societal happiness. Now, it didn't work in communist Russia for a whole lot of reasons. I kind of doubt that communism could ever work because humans don't quite think that way. Capitalism doesn't quite work either. And just seeing this entirely different viewpoint and how people pursued it and how they fully embraced it and how they had a completely different fundamental belief system that they were so happy with was very eye-opening. It allowed me to see that there were other ways of thinking, other ways of choosing, other ways of doing. Now, ultimately, I ended up leaving the American echo chamber entirely, coming to New Zealand to explore new opportunities in life. Decided to scale way back on work and discover what my values were. I didn't know the word values at the time, but I knew that there were a lot of things in life that I wanted and I wasn't even touching that were outside of work and making money. And so when I came here, I began exploring new cultural groups and new hobbies. And what I found was essentially new echo chambers. In these groups, they're small bubbles compared to like a society or an ideology or a religion. In these groups, you had a lot of like-minded people that come in, just like Brojo, who have similar goals and similar values and can grow each other by sharing and challenging each other with new ideas. Now, where I started was exploring martial arts. I needed some fitness. Gym was a little bit boring. I thought, hey, I've always wanted to do this. This would be cool. The martial arts echo chamber taught me a lot. Taught me about meritocracy. Work hard and you'll be rewarded according to your performance, your effort. It's nothing to do really with seniority. It's not even to do with skill, like innate skill. It's deeper than that. It's got to be about commitment. It's got to be about grit. It's about attitude. It's about willingness to share and teach. That community had different values, and I learned a lot from that. Now, what was interesting was exploring that echo chamber introduced me into other echo chambers. I ended up exploring the Japanese language from there. I just got curious about Japanese culture. It's something that had always fascinated me. Karate had been my first introduction to it, so I started going to a Japanese language class and found Japanese people are kind of cool, actually. You know, they have different worldview from what I grew up with. Different experiences, different expectations, different values. They really appreciate beauty and they really appreciate their idea of perfection, which to them isn't just precision, it's beauty and precision together. It's a kind of artistic beauty and uniqueness, which was really fascinating because they also really value the social community, the idea of the many before the one. So in America, as one, your idea of success is I succeeded. In Japan, it's much more about we succeeded. And the idea of if a Japanese worker makes a mistake, it's not his fault. The entire community of workers takes responsibility for that because they all see themselves as somehow having participated in the fact that this worker made an error. So it's quite fascinating. From there, I got into Japanese taiko drumming, which exposed me to being on stage, which was a whole new thing. Exposed me to leading a performing arts group, which was a whole nother thing. From Japanese drumming, I went to acro yoga. Each community had different thoughts, different goals, different beliefs, different structures, different founding principles, different objectives of what makes us the best we can be in this area. On and on it progressed. From acro yoga, I went into zouk dancing. I started exploring Thai massage, ended up at a Thai temple, right? On and on. I just kept finding these new groups. Now, every single one of these added to my understanding of myself. And it did it in a few ways. One is it introduced me to my own values. I got to see the things I value. I got to see my values expressed in different ways in each of these different environments. And it helped me to see them more clearly. Another thing that was very important was that the ideals of right and wrong and the way the group works together was also quite different. So I got the ability to see through the eyes of other people, look at alternative ideas, and pick the ones I liked from among them the most. Here's a great example outside of these. There's a story about from years ago when the U.S. set up its first embassy in Moscow, Russia, and it's kind of a funny story. But the story goes that the Russian contractors were tasked to build the U.S. embassy, and that when the Americans moved into the embassy, the first thing they wanted to do, because this was during the Cold War, was check for bugs and listening instruments, because they were pretty sure they were going to find some. They started checking the lamps, and they started checking the furniture and the carpets and the couches and everything. And they found bugs. They found lots of bugs. And then they found more bugs. So they started replacing all the furniture and the carpets and so on. They kept finding bugs. What they realized was that the bugs were actually in the concrete of the walls built by the contractors. Now this was this presented a problem, of course. It meant they ultimately had to tear down and rebuild the entire building. But what was fascinating about what they found was that the electronics they discovered in the walls didn't follow any known principles of electrical engineering that the Americans were familiar with. They literally couldn't explain why these things worked, how they were powered, or how they were broadcasting radio transmissions, and yet they were. So when we look at an echo chamber, it's that set of ideals and ideologies that you surround yourself have a huge impact on what you think you are capable of. All right? So what I want you to do right now as part of your day one homework is sit down and think about all of the skills and the hobbies that you have introduced into your life at any point. And I want you to look at how they became part of your life. And I want you to look at what did you learn from them that you hadn't learned from any other area of your life prior to that. Sit down and reflect on this, and I'll see you tomorrow.